Okay, so this is going to be the long-awaited explanation of that problem we did in class for determining the output of this. And you'll notice I have a spreadsheet on the right that I'm going to use for my charts, and I'm running this in Visual Studio. And in Visual Studio you can actually step through, which is why I'm doing it, and examine all the variables and their values. Now if you look down at the lower left of the screen, you'll see A is 1, B is 2, and C is 3. The reason I and J have those really weird values is because they're locally allocated, and there's no, they haven't been initialized until you get to the loops. So also notice in the spreadsheet that I've got initial values. A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. So now I'm going to go ahead and step through this, and I think I have to do this in such a way that I'm not sure. Yeah, this is actually not all that convenient, just because I'm using Camtasia to record this. So anyway, so notice now I has a value of 0, and you'll see this. Unfortunately, you'll see this that the menu come up in front of you. All right, so now I is 0, J is 0, right? So now we're going to go through J. J will be 0. J is less than 5, so J should be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The only caveat is that when J gets to be 2, it breaks. So really, we're only going to see J as 0, 1, 2. Okay. Step over. So now notice the value of A is now negative 2. Notice that the debugger is very carefully just stepping over each. Okay, so that's the first pass through J, the J loop. Notice that J is still 0 until you hit this again, another step, and J is back. And I know I've told you that it gets incremented to the end of the loop, which it really does. Okay, so now A is going to be subtracting 3 from it. Okay, J is still not 2. Step over, and we're going to add, and notice that J divided by 2 is still 0, right? Notice that J divided by 2 is still 0. Step over this. Okay, so A, we've subtracted 3 from A twice, so it's negative 5. Notice that B hasn't changed. That's because each time through, J divided by 2 has been, since its integer math has been 0. Okay. Now at this point, J is 2, but A is still going to subtract 3 from it. So let's go ahead and say now A has subtracted. So really, basically, every time through here, we're going to subtract 3, 6, 9. We're going to subtract 9 from A. Every time through here, we'll subtract 9 from A. But now J is 2, so it's going to actually break. So it breaks. It determines that it's 2, and it breaks. Notice that every time, so the J loop always subtracts 9 from A altogether and adds 0 to B. So it never, so B is actually going to stay the same the entire. So I'm going to go ahead and go over here and put A as negative 8, negative 8. Oops, I was in the wrong cell there, wasn't I? And B is still going to be 2. We've got to wait for C, because C is going to be updated right here. But notice that A is negative 8, B is 2, so that's going to be negative 6 divided by 5. So essentially, remember, we're doing integer math. So now we're going to add, we should be adding negative 1 to C. Okay. Step over. So now C, we added -1 to C. So C is now down to 2. Okay. And at this point, I is 0, and I'm going to say J was 0 to 2. Notice also J never got to the end, so it never got past this counter. You know, a lot of times we say, well, for it to break the loop, it's got to be 6, but it never actually gets to that point. Okay, so that's the first time through the I loop. Let's keep going. Step over. Okay, now I is going to be 1. And remember, J is going to go ahead and be 0 to 2. Remember, A is also, I don't want to go through this whole thing too many times. Remember, J is will always subtract 9 from A. So through this, I'm going to set a breakpoint right here. And if we just go there, you'll see that try to hit F5. That should be okay. All right, F5 is it. So notice that B stayed the same. Remember we said B, in essence, B is going to be, oops, that's the wrong cell I was in. So B is still going to be the same. A is going to be -9, so this should be -17. And let's see what C is going to turn out to be. So here we're adding, let's see, A plus B is going to be -17 plus 2, so that'll be -15 divided by 5. That should be -3. So C at this point should add -3. And sure enough, C turns out to be -1, so it did add -3. So far, so good. Okay, good. And we're going to go through and do another loop. So we're back up to the top here. Now I is 2. And I'm just going to put J as 0 to 2. And remember, each time through A is going to be subtracting 9. So we'll say negative, it should be -26. And B isn't altered at all through this J loop. So let's go ahead and come here. Now notice I is still not this, so this won't be true. So we're still going to continue to go. We're still going to go on past this. Now C is going to be A plus B. A plus B is going to be -26 plus 2 is going to be -24 divided by 5. And in integer math, that's going to be -4. So we're going to add -4 to C at this point. Okay, -4 to C should get us to -5 over here. So let's say -5 out there on our chart. We're going to go back and do another loop iteration. Now we're up to the top here, and I is now 3. And I'm going to say J is just going to be 0 to 2. Okay. Now remember, in this whole loop, nothing happens to B, so we'll have this, but for every time A is going to be plus -9. So A is going to be -35. Right? Okay, so let me go ahead and hit. Okay, so here we are. Basically, I'm hitting F5, which I'm just skipping this whole loop just since we know what the outcome is going to be. Okay. Now, the interesting thing is you'll see that I is 3. And so what we're going to do is, if we step over this, you'll notice that it gets to this continue because I is 3. And it goes back up to the top of the loop, right? It doesn't do this. What a continue does is says, don't do the rest of the loop, go back to the top. So C stayed the same value, okay? And I want to point out that you can see all here, down here in the lower left, you can see all the values of all these variables. Now we're going to be doing our last let's see, I actually hit the wrong button here. Oh, I see. I see. I have one too many columns here. Let me go ahead and get rid of this because I thought it was less than 5 mistakenly. It's actually less than 4. But once we get down here, notice that I is going to be 4 because it went 1, and J is going to be 2. Notice that A is still negative 35 because nothing else happened. B is still 2. B stayed the same the entire time, and C is negative 5. So that gives you a pretty good rundown of what happened in this exercise.